Hello and welcome back to the Scottish Curling Podcast, the show where we sweep through the stories, the spirit and the soul of Scotland's greatest winter sport. I'm your host, Peter Joyce, and this is episode 4, and trust me, it's another big one. Today we're joined by none other than Olympic gold medalist, world champion, and one of the most iconic figures in modern curling, Eve Muirhead. From Perthshire prodigy to Team GB legend, Eve's journey has inspired a new generation of curlers across Scotland and beyond. In this episode, we dive into the highs and lows of her extraordinary career, the pressure of the Olympic stage, her soon-to-be-released autobiography, and what life looks like after hanging up the broom. This is one you won't want to miss. So grab a cuppa, settle in, and let's get sweeping. Here's episode 4 with Eve Muirhead.
Okay, welcome everyone, but more importantly, welcome to our latest guest on the Scottish Curling Podcast, the current Olympic champion, and we'll say that until we can no longer say it, and that is Eve Muirhead. And so welcome to Eve. Thanks for joining us on the podcast.
Yeah, no, thank you for having me.
That's grand. So chuffed to bits that you could make it. And of course, for the listeners, I obviously owe Eve a personal thanks because I've been here for 2.5 years now, and Eve has been part of my consigliere whenever I have a difficult curling question. Eve is one of those voices I go to for a bit of counsel, and she's always stepped up. So the sport of curling as ever owes a debt to Eve Muirhead, as well as to its chief exec, who's sometimes scrambling about with problems here, there and everywhere. So Eve, one of the first things that, obviously getting you on the podcast was an objective for Peter and I from the start, but we were chuffed to hear of the launch of your book over the last few weeks, which is coming out on September the 4th. I suppose Peter and I hoover up sporting literature quite consistently across other sports, but curling's never really had a book before. So what was the motivation behind writing the book? Was it the right time, or were you looking to do something different with it?
No, thank you for having me. It's exciting, and so the book. So I've been thinking about it for a little while, especially off the back of the Olympic Games, and I think, like you say, curling and in Britain have never put a book out, especially the athletes haven't. And funnily enough, I noticed that Jennifer Jones just released one a few months ago as well. So like nothing happens with books and then suddenly they all come at once, don't they? But I think I saw there was an opportunity for me to share my story. It's been quite a challenging story, if I'm perfectly honest. It's probably one of the hardest things that I have done is put this book together, because you go through so many great moments, and of course there's loads of them within my career, but there's also a lot of kind of like emotionally tough times as well, and a lot of that's coming back from failure, and it's kind of the decisions that I had to make along the way. A lot of people don't see the proper picture, what it takes to become an Olympic champion. Of course, you get all that kind of airtime on the TV during the games, and they see you standing at the top of the podium at the end. But I think it's the kind of importance of what happens behind the scenes that make something like this book exciting, and for people to read and really get a grasp on what it really takes to be that athlete, and I guess an Olympic champion.
Awesome. So there's a bit there that I'd like to come back on. You talk about dealing with failure, and I suppose when you've scaled the heights that you have, 4 Olympics, bronze, gold, World Juniors, we were talking just before the audio came on there about how you'd effectively completed that with 4 gold medals. And then you've won gold at World Mixed Doubles, you've won gold at World Women's, Europeans, and as well as Scottish. How does the word failure come into a CV of success like that? Is it the Olympics?
No, honestly, failure's been a big part of my career, and you could read all those successes, but I'll guarantee you there's probably been a lot more games that I've lost than what I've won within my career. Like, there's a lot of silver medals and bronze medals in there. And yes, I did get off to a flying start in my career, winning those four World Junior titles, won my first ladies title when I was quite young. And at that time, you win the Scottish and you go. So I realised how important that Scottish Championship was. And it was always the kind of pinnacle and the highlight of my of my calendar. Like I always made sure I needed to peak at the Scottish Championships because I knew how much pressure was on that. Because if I wanted to get to the Worlds, which I then knew was a stepping stone for likes of Olympic selection, I had to win that Scottish. So from a young age, I really made sure and kind of prioritize certain events. And yes, of course, you go to Canada, you play these big Grand Slams tour events, which weren't as big back when I was kind of the kind of prime of my career back then. The Grand Slams were just kind of starting and taking off. But I still prioritized the Scottish Championships. I wanted to make sure that's where I did peak. But as I say, of course, there has been quite a bit of failure within that. And yes, you could win a championship, but there's still going to be failure within that championship to get to the podium. Sometimes that takes a lot of very tough conversations mid-tournament. Sometimes a lot of home truths from your support staff and your coaches, which I've of course been on the back of and been part of. So it's a sport that I realized very quickly you're not really in it to kind of make people happy, if you know what I mean. It's if you want to be a really successful athlete, I want to say within any sport, you've got to be pretty tough-skinned. You do. And yeah, there's been times that I've started to fade. And I guess that's where we spoke about a little bit of my book, and it kind of just shows you the journey and the resilience that I needed to come back from a lot of failure during that.
Eve, thanks for that. So the book is out on the 4th of September. Is that right? And I've pre-ordered my copy, which will be arriving hopefully on the 4th when I'm in Congress for World Curling Congress. So I won't get to
in
read
Australia, I'm sorry,
till the
don't
next week.
Australia.
But so if we go back to the beginning, you grew up in Pitlochry, and you grew into a family that has some fairly significant curling DNA in it, with your dad as a world champion, of course, your brothers too. I suppose, was it easy for you to get into curling, or did you keep it for a few years until you felt it was the right thing to do and there was other interests around you?
Yeah, I was probably quite lucky that having a family that curled probably did make it a little easier for me to get into the sport because like my family knew about the sport. I can imagine it being a little bit tougher, which I don't know what it's like, but for someone to get into the sport of curling whose family, whose parents have absolutely no idea about the sport or don't know how like where to go, what to do. So I was very lucky that my dad was a curler and went along. And I remember it as a young child with my brother Glenn. Used to go along and watch my dad compete. Usually, like he would be like, "I'm leaving at 6 o'clock, and if you're not in the kitchen, I'm leaving without you." So I'd be down there at like 5:30, waiting to go to like Perth Masters, Edinburgh International. And there'd be weekends I would sit and watch curling from, I don't know, if he had a game at 8:30 in the morning and his last game at 6, 7 at night, like I would literally sit there and watch curling all day. And I look back and I think like honestly, I think it's where I learned the most of my curling was watching curling. And then at night time, we'd kind of beg and ask Dad to put on the old, I guess the VCRs, aren't they? Like the old big videos. He's got like games of like way back in the day. You get all your kind of Kevin Martin, your Jeff Stoutons, your Glenn Howards, like the Briar, and these kind of games that the majority is in black and white. And we used to sit for hours, me, Glenn, and then Thomas when he came along, watching these games. We just absolutely loved it. And yeah, we'd sit and watch. And I honestly do believe that I learned the most of my curling watching before I even stepped foot in the ice. I just loved watching the sport.
Eve, do you think being ingrained in curling and coming from such a almost a dynasty that brings its own pressure and a different pressure when it's you out doing it?
Yeah, I suppose it probably does. Do you know what the one great thing that I'll always be very thankful for, like my family never ever pushed me into the sport. And I think that's what made it slightly easier for me because it was always my choice that curling was what I wanted to do. And a lot of people say, like, why did you not pick golf? You're a good golfer, blah, blah, blah. But I knew I had such an opportunity in curling, and that was the sport that I picked. And yeah, going back, like mum and dad, they always supported me. Basically my taxi driver till I was 17, 18, from rink to rink and to training. Lucky enough, Pitlochry actually was just a kind of 10-minute walk from the school. So as soon as the school bell went, that's where I was off to, walking down to the athletics rink. But yeah, never ever pushed into the sport. But I do think maybe as I got slightly older, you've kind of got a curling name, I guess a little bit like kind of Smith, Lockhart, like it's a known curling name. Um, and maybe without me knowing, there maybe was a little bit of pressure there, yes. But sometimes pressure can be a good thing. And we always kind of say that. You could look at likes of Bruce Mowat going into these Olympic Games in his team. They're going in as the current world champions. And of course, that's going to add pressure. But every team's got pressure in the Olympic Games. So you've just got to kind of put it into kind of relevance, like what kind of pressure that is and how you're going to deal with that pressure. And yeah, I kind of probably enjoyed having the pressure on my back, to be honest. And when I have pressure, I tended to perform better.
So speaking of those performances, and you mentioned those ages there, 17, 18. World Championships and World Juniors have got a huge place in curling. They're really, really resonant for all the young athletes, perhaps more than most other sports. So you first went to the World Juniors in '07 and won gold, and then again in '08 and '09 and won gold, and in 2011 and won gold. So obviously the theme is there, but the first one you went to was in '07 when you weren't a skip. So we'd love to know what's it like going when you're known as kind of one of the ultimate skips who was a skip for the vast majority of your career. What's it like to go and to not be the person throwing the last stone and still be successful?
It was one thing that my dad taught me when I was younger, when I was kind of breaking through. I remember him telling me that you're better playing down the rink in a better team than trying to skip in a team that's maybe not as good. And I remember that very clearly, and I always remembered that I'd rather play second, third, in a team that was a good team, and then slowly kind of work my way up. So 2007, I played third for Sarah Reid's team. We won the Scottish juniors and we went out to the Worlds in America. And I remember that week, I actually got benched midway through the week. Because like we were struggling, we relied on I think we relied on another result going our way to be able to qualify. And as a team, we realised that something just wasn't quite right, and we needed to make a bit of a change. And yeah, I remember sitting off. I think it was only one or two games. I can't remember. It was our coach was Sheila Swan. Um, so Sheila put me on the bench and had a game off, and then I came back on for the semi final. And then yeah, we managed to steal a two up the last end against Canada in the final, and then steal the extra end. So, but I do believe I learned so much playing down the rink. And from then on, Sarah aged out of juniors, and then that's when I kind of stepped up to skip. Having learned quite a lot when I was playing third. Can't say I enjoyed the sweeping sweeping too much. I've never quite gone back to that. And then yeah, carried on from there, getting my own team. But I think when we look back, it was very, very different back then. Like I remember, like I'd be the one making the phone calls, like to my
Aye.
team, like, oh, I think it was at that time. I think I got Vicky Chalmers into my team, and I remember making the phone call, like phoning up Vicky saying, "Hi, like, would you come and play with me?" Looking for a coach, looking for other team members. So it's very different how it was done back then to what it's done now. Like now, as you know, teams are put in front of us and we're selected into teams, and we're basically told this is who you're playing with and this is who's going to be your coach. Like back then, it was us making the phone calls. I had to also make phone calls or sit down with people and tell them that unfortunately, like we're making a change and we're not going to have you in the team anymore. So that there's a lot of parts of curling that happened years ago that people still like they don't realize that's what it was like back then, and it just shows you how much the sport has changed and moved on over the years.
Do you think there's an element of that though that led you to becoming the winner that you absolutely did? That responsibility, those conversations, like you say, do you think
Yeah.
there was something in that?
I do, yeah. Like I'll be honest, it took a lot of nerves and a lot of guts to make a lot of these calls, and I was on the other end of a lot of these calls at times as well. There was many times, like I mentioned at the start, that you'd sit down with coaches, support staff, and kind of a few home truths were kind of said to you, but I just remember I kept having to tell myself that this is to make you a better person and a better player. It's not to have a go at you. It's to make the team better, the team function better. Because we all know, like, it's not an individual sport. You're never going to win an Olympic gold medal on your own. Like, you have to have that team behind you. And it's crucial that all the decisions are made to make you a better team. So I do think a lot of those times did help me become a better and stronger person, not just on the ice, but I think off the ice as well.
So if we stay in that time frame, I was quite deliberate there when I read out the years that you went to World Juniors and won gold, which is '07, '08, '09 and 2011. 2010 was obviously a big year as well.
I know I missed my juniors that year.
Yeah,
Could have
you
had
miss it.
five.
So you did you did something else though in 2010, wasn't it? It was Olympics #1, and you got to the gold medal match at the World Women's Championships as well, didn't you?
Yeah, so I was selected after winning the Scottish Champs in, I think it was probably, was it '09 my first Scottish Champs, or '08? I can't remember. After I won my first champs, yeah, so I was selected into the squad for Vancouver. There were six of us in the squad for the Olympic Games. So obviously one person unfortunately was going to get that phone call and not make it onto the plane. And that's when I really kind of changed a lot of kind of my mindset towards the sport. I realized that, God, I really do have an opportunity coming up ahead of me. And that's when kind of training upped. And like I say, training upped, it's still very little in comparison to what I was doing towards the end of my career and what we see the athletes doing now. Like I mean, a very, very small part. Um, and yeah, I was selected for the team. And I remember sitting down with Nancy Smith and Derek Brown, who was the head coach at that time. And they said they'd like me to skip the team. And I'll be honest, it was a surprise to me because I was in that team with likes of Jackie Lockhart, who's no offense, Jackie, but several years like older than me. Kelly Wood, who's also older than me, Lorna Beavers, all older than me. And then Annie Laird as well was brought into the team. So I was the kind of young one within that team, and then I was named a skip. So you can imagine that being quite tough, like being the skip of the team, trying to kind of captain a team that are more experienced than you, some of who have already been to the Olympic Games. And to make things even harder, Jackie was named as like the team captain or like the team manager, and I was the skip. So things were quite difficult, if you know what I mean. So I'm trying to call the game, be the skip, but not the captain of the team. And of course that worked. Like we for some of the tournament, like we got off to a cracking start. I think we were on 3-0 or 4-1 after 5 games. Like we were going well at the Olympic Games, and then yeah, the wheels started falling off the cart a little bit. But I think we were a team with very good intentions going into those games, but just weren't quite good enough at that time. We were just those few kind of steps behind those nations.
There's
That
a there's a
well,
famous bit of footage from the 2010 Olympics which shows your
I know
birthday
exactly what
coming
you're
off.
gonna. I know exactly what you're gonna bring up.
Yes. I think we've talked about that before. It was one of the first bits of footage you ever saw of you as an athlete was that one because it was around the time when you began to be a media figure, and I suppose when you're so young and so successful and you're at an Olympic Games, but it's a moment that's kind of not in the
Mhm.
positive bucket, but the media grabs a hold of it. How does that affect somebody as young as you were at the time?
Yeah, like until you actually go to an Olympic Games, you actually realize like how different it is, and you can say for so long, like it's just another championship. Just treat it like a Worlds, treat it like a Europeans, and you can only do that for a certain amount of time. Like the Olympic Games is a very, very different kettle of fish. And yeah, the incident you're speaking about, I broke a brush. I think it was the last game against Denmark, and I think just frustration kind of kicked in a little bit. And yeah, broke a brush. And I remember it. And I remember going back to the other end because at that time you could just go and pick a new one out your brush bag, very different to what it is now. So I remember sliding back up to the end to get another one, and the kind of crowd started like slow clapping me back up. Oh, it was awful. It was terrible. Um, and yes, for some reason that video is yeah, still on YouTube. But I can laugh about it now. And even at the time, me and Jackie had a little laugh about it. And again, it just shows you like the sport again has moved on since then.
Yeah.
Like you very if people break brushes now on the ice, like they'd be off, or they're not even allowed to get another brush, are they? So yeah, like I honestly don't think there's anything wrong with emotion on the ice. I think it's
Yeah,
a very
agreed. Yeah.
it's a part of the sport, isn't
Yeah.
it?
And
And I do think sometimes now it's getting a little bit, umpires becoming maybe a little bit too harsh on some of the athletes. Like you see them, they don't really do very much. Emotion always comes in as an athlete. You watch Wimbledon, you watch, even you look at the golf, you watch the Masters. There's guys breaking clubs, hitting clubs, tennis rackets getting broken, whatever. It's just part of elite sport. Frustration comes in, and I do think that it's a part of the sport that I think is never going to go away. And sometimes it just shows how passionate athletes are, and I do think there's nothing wrong with it.
so if we look at that transition then, so 2010, you go and you win the Worlds in 2013, and then it's the Sochi Olympics in 2014. So was what changed for you? Obviously, you were a bit older, but at what stage did you have to be? I suppose this is the wrong phrase, but you know what I mean. How more professional did you have to be in that gap between 2010 and 2014?
No, like I think it's definitely right, being more professional. Like if I go back to Vancouver, I think I made best friends with like the manager at McDonald's in the village. Like that's what I was like as an athlete back then. And yes,
That's
I
what I'm
did.
going to justify my next trip to McDonald's with, by the way. Is like Muirhead
And
each year.
yes, I did train more, but that's because before that I didn't bother training. I didn't do anything. So now we're talking maybe one or two gym sessions a week and a couple curling sessions a week. But moving on, like what you said, what did change? Like I think for me, the biggest change, I remember I went down to London 2012, just as a spectator. And if I'm honest, I went as for the social, because I was still kind of in that kind of young person's phase. And I went for the social, and I probably came back with a very different mentality. I remember sitting watching athletes like so if I saw lucky enough to see like Jess Ennis winning that gold medal, watching your swimmers, and watching GB athletes standing on top of the podium with that gold medal, and just something clicked, and I was like, that's what I want to do. I want to be that athlete on that podium. And I remember I came back and I completely changed as a person, as an athlete. My mentality changed, and I just got my head down. I trained harder, I practiced harder, I probably analysed different parts of like sort of opposition, my own tactics, watched more curling again of the kind of top Canadian guys, because at that time they were dominating on the world circuit. Obviously that's changed slightly now. Um, and yeah, I just got the kick up the ass I needed, if I'm honest, to be a better athlete. And from then on, I can honestly say I could probably count on one hand the amount of training sessions I missed. I would come home, I would do extra, probably too much. I wonder why I maybe had hip surgery in 2017, because I probably put my body through a lot, but I realized that I was just so desperate to get that end goal that I wanted. I would do anything to do it.
So is it safe to say that the legacy that you got from 2010 was kind of what happened in 2013 and winning that World Championships? Because the we were having a look through that competition in Riga, and you play Sweden three times,
Mm,
you lose
yeah,
to them twice.
yeah.
It would be
But
easy to
we beat them in the game that mattered.
exactly. So it would have been easy for to feel like they had your number and it would have been different.
Mm.
So how do you use those experiences that you've had before to make things different and get kind of back to winning?
Yeah. Like I think in an athlete's career, there's always going to be peaks and there's always going to be come downs. But it's making sure that when you do peak, the next time you peak, you're peaking slightly higher, if that makes sense, because you've got to remember other countries are also getting slightly better. And I always came away with the phrase that I always wanted to be one step ahead of everyone else. I wanted to be that person or that team that other countries were following and they were chasing. And they were kind of always looking like, what are they doing? Well, should we be doing that? To basically the trendsetters, if that makes sense. Like that's what I wanted to be. The world champs in 2013 was probably the event that then gave myself and the team a very good kind of motivational boost. Because we knew we were now capable of being the best team in the world. Um, that week again was a tough, challenging week, and again we could use the word failure again, like you say, we lost to Sweden twice, before we managed to beat them in the final, and some of those games I remember like we should have won, we didn't win, but curling's a sport that you literally have a handful of hours to then get yourself sorted, get your head sorted, um, and get back on the ice and perform again. So that's never ever easy. But from getting that world champs medal, it then put us into Olympic Games in 2014, as world ranked number one. Again, quite a lot of pressure going in, and kind of I think we did deal with the pressure going in, for sure, because when you're out there, you're in that bubble. Um, but then unfortunately, yeah, had that kind of devastating loss to Canada in the semi-final at the Olympic Games, and still to this day, like I would still say it's probably one of the most devastating defeats of my career, that game against Canada in the semi-final. We probably had the game of the turn of our tournament. Canada also the game of their tournament, and when you come up against Canada on a good day, is never nice. And like I always say that a bronze medal is probably one of the toughest medals to win, especially in a team sport. And that's because you're going to be coming off a defeat in the semi-final. And we had to turn ourselves around probably within 12, 14 hours, to then get back on the ice and play Switzerland for the bronze medal game. So it was a tough week, of course, but I do think that World Champs in 2013 was a big turning point for myself and my team within my career.
So you look at Sochi, obviously there was big performances from the men's and the women's team out there. We had Scott Andrews, who works with us, obviously, but he was our previous guest, and the guys took a silver medal, and you guys took a bronze. So I suppose the question is, what is that 2014 experience then? Is that forefront in your mind when it comes 8 years later? Are you thinking about the failure? Failure is not the right word, but that's the one that we've used. The fact that you didn't win gold in 2014, does that drive on in 2022 when you're in the tournament and you're like, I don't want to think like that again?
Um, I would say more 2018 for me, thinking about kind of failure as such. Like I that hit me really, really hard in Pyeongchang. I would say Sochi, we came away with the bronze medal, and very different to the men. Like we're celebrating a win on our last game. The men, yes, they come away with a silver medal, but I can imagine, I'm not putting words in their mouth, but they'd be pretty they would be slightly disappointed that they didn't come away with the gold medal. Like they were finishing on a defeat, we were finishing on a win, if that makes sense. But
Yeah.
they've still got a medal ahead of us. So it's funny. It's funny when it comes to that kind of winning a bronze medal or losing a gold medal. Um, but on the back of Sochi, that's when your kind of life starts to change around a little bit. And the same for the men's team. Like we hadn't medalled in curling since 2002 when Rona Martin won her gold medal, and all of a sudden we've got two medals, an Olympic silver and Olympic bronze medal coming back to Great Britain. So that's when curling started becoming big again, I would say. Obviously in the back of Salt Lake, it hit the news hard, Ronan the girls, getting the gold medal, and then maybe quieting down for a little while, and then Sochi comes back. Moving forward to Pyeongchang, I'm going to be like, I still, the last shot that I had to win a bronze medal, like it still plays in my head to this day. Like 9 times out of 10, I'm making that in practice, like an intern half stone peel weight hit, like yeah, and it hit me hard for months and months after. Um, but I guess on the back of that, I'm quite proud of myself for being able to turn around and actually come back and play again, because I was very, very close to throwing the shoes in the cupboard, and not taking them out again. And I guess I'm very glad I did, because I managed to get back to another Olympic Games. But that was probably a very, very tough 4 years, and probably the toughest 4 years that I have had. But of course, I don't want to give away too much of the book,
No,
do
well,
I?
yeah, we're going to read all about that on the 4th of September. But if we talk about that golden moment, then let's think about 2022 Beijing. But of course, very, very few people there to watch. What's it for us that haven't been to a games, particularly one affected by the pandemic? What's it like when you've been to three and you go to the fourth and it's completely different from the other three that you've
Horrible.
been to?
It
Yeah.
was brutal. And it was just like, for the months and months leading into it, you just feel like you're stepping on eggshells. Like you're just too scared to go out the house. You're too scared to do anything in case you catch COVID. Because you basically knew that if you're to catch COVID, yes, you could probably be tested negative within a couple of weeks or a week. I can't even remember. But you've still got the aftermath in your body, and that's what the tests pick up. Um, so basically, we knew that if we were to catch COVID, like that would have been our kind of Olympic Games over. So I remember that Christmas leading up to the games was yeah, more or less non-existent. Um, Still, like I was with family, but of course you're very, very like cautious, like making sure they're all tested before they come home, and you're kind of in and out, if you know what I mean, keeping a bit of distance within the family. But even the pre-qualifier, the Olympic Games qualifier prior, like we have to mention this because it's a good story. So obviously we didn't qualify through the World Champs. So we had to go to the OQE, which was out in Netherlands, to qualify Great Britain a spot at the Olympic Games. And the team was selected after the squad process, and we got out there. So of course, as always, the first thing you do is you arrive and you have to do a PCR test. So we got to the hotel and straight in, hadn't even got into our rooms, and were kind of taken away into a room and given a PCR test. Just one of the ones so you can kind of see it in front of you, whether you're positive or negative. So I'm sitting there, so I did mine, that was fine. Watching the doodah, all fine, negative. Vicky is sitting across from me, and suddenly she just looks at me and then looks down, then looks at me again, and she's like, it's positive. And I was like, stop it. I thought she was just joking. And she's like, no, actually, it's a positive test. And she was positive. And we are like, oh my God, like what happens? So of course we went back up to her. We were basically told, like straight away, Vicky's like within miles away from us all because we didn't
Yeah.
want to catch it from her. So then she gets taken away to do a proper sorry, that then she'll be taken away to do a PCR test. So we did a lat flow test. That was a
Right,
lat flow
right.
test at the hotel. So she's taken away to do a PCR test. Meanwhile, we are in our rooms. We all got a room in our own. Next morning was official practice. So we were walking to the rink. Poor Vicky's up in like the 12th floor of the hotel, waving at us out the window. I think she did a Joe Wicks workout that morning because she's like, I feel absolutely fine. Yeah, so like, and I'm sure she did a lat flow of her own, and it came up negative. And anyway, so we're at the rink, and meanwhile, we've got another player flying out to come because we were down to 4 people, and we could have done with someone else. So Gina Aitken made it to Heathrow, I think, just waiting for a connection to Netherlands. And then suddenly Vicky gets her test results back, and it's negative. So yeah, so all along, so it was a false positive. So we had so much drama like within that year basically
Yeah.
leading up to the games. Some false positives that could have cost us the OQE and the Team GB spot. So Vicky missed the official practice. We came and then we managed to win the OQE. So yeah, without a bit of drama, we made it onto the flight to Beijing Olympics.
So that
Uh,
you obviously know all the players that are in that team, but that wasn't a team that had that much time together in that kind of squad system that was having to run because there wasn't any curling for the
mm,
previous year or 18 months beforehand. So
yeah.
what's the dynamic like? Obviously, you know everybody pretty well in terms of them as individuals, but you might not have had that much experience of them as teammates. How did you get over that hurdle?
Yeah, like funny you say you know them all. I'll like be honest, Haley Duff. I didn't know Haley at all.
All right.
And yeah, no, Haley was in the squad. Like I knew her as a player, but I didn't really know her. So she was one of the nine within the squad. So it's basically two teams plus Haley. Um, and it was a very, very tough year. I'm not gonna lie. Each week you're in a different team. You're either blue team, red team. You're a different position. Um, yeah, I think did I? I don't think I played down the rink in any games, but I sat off a couple games. Skipped probably every combination possible. And you feel a lot of pressure when you're doing that because you're not playing for a team, you're playing for yourself.
Mhm.
But you are playing as a team because you're like competing as a team. It was hard. It was bizarre. Um, but yeah, so managed to come through and yeah, Haley being someone who wasn't in either of those kind of top two female teams, just really did kind of prove the talent she had and came through and she was the Olympic lead and shot the lights out. Won the European title just prior to the Olympic Games and then won the OQE and then went on and won the gold medal. So Haley, I don't think's been to any championship and not won a gold medal. Am I right? Maybe
Quite the stat, that isn't it?
it is, isn't
We'll
it?
see if we can
I
check
would have
that one
hung up
out.
my
Yeah,
shoes if
brilliant.
I was her.
Yeah, we're getting a T-shirt with that on it.
Eve, when during that games did you start to think this is this does it feel different? Do you start to think we can do this?
Do you know what? I didn't at all during the games. The games, it was very, very different. Like, I remember we landed there, got the worst PCR test I have ever had. Like, I'm not joking. There was people coming out with nosebleeds, everything. Like, it was literally up your nose, round the corner, pushed a little bit harder. Into, oh, it was horrendous. And that hurt for days after. Every single morning, we had to get a PCR test. And like you're just kind of hoping and praying that you don't get that kind of phone call to say like you're positive. Because within those games, within the village, you saw people who were positive. Like basically an ambulance would turn up outside your block. Guys would get out in full hazmat suits, come and get you and put you in the back of the ambulance and take you away to kind of quarantine for I don't know how long. And there was all the kind of stories online, wasn't there, that showed the horrible hotels that you're going to be put in, and it wasn't nice. Um, like it was just a very different. Like, you couldn't leave the village. You're literally the food hall. Like the food hall is a huge part of the Olympic Games. For one, the food was awful. Ugh, it was. Ugh, I don't even know how to describe the food that we got. But for two, like in the food hall, you're literally sitting in these little pods with like big screens each side. So you can't even really like socialize with your team or anything. Because for us, like as a curling team, like eating's one of the times that you can kind of switch off and you can have a bit of a laugh and you spend a few hours, don't you? Um, but the food hall, you're literally in your little cage eating your food back to your room and you can't even leave the village to even watch other sport, anything. So it was a very, very different games. But the curling itself was the same as any other curling tournament. Like you turned up, you warmed up, you practiced, and you got on with the game. And that week, I would say what was the difference between that and kind of previous games was that I actually did enjoy the curling. And I would say prior to that and other tournaments, maybe from kind of Sochi onwards, like I was scared of like losing and scared of making mistakes, didn't want to be a failure. And I put all that extra pressure on myself. And any mistake I did make, I kind of really beat myself up about it. And when it came to Beijing, like, believe you me, I made a lot of mistakes. I just made sure and learned from those mistakes and kind of moved on. And in a way, took the mistakes as a positive to learn something from, and move on to the next stone, the next game. And I think as well, like the team, we were kind of all in it for the same reason. We were very open and honest with each other. If things kind of needed said and brought to the table, like we did that. As a group of kind of five girls, sometimes being open and honest can be very difficult. And as a team, I think that's one thing that we did very well. That we were, and then it was kind of left in the room, and then we moved on. And yeah, I wanted as a skip to make sure that my team knew that I had full confidence in them. I wanted to make them feel like they were the best curlers out there, which they were for the entire week. And when you enjoy it and you don't put too much pressure on yourself, then it just shows you how different results can be. And for Beijing, honestly can walk away and say I enjoyed every single minute of the Olympic Games.
Awesome. We enjoyed watching it.
Even though it's middle of the night.
Well, yeah. Yeah.
Eve, what's that moment like when it's a big question, but when you've won that gold medal, what is it like? Because people say, it's the pinnacle, it's the top. Is that how you're thinking, or are you thinking, what's next?
Well, I think everyone saw by my face when I was standing on the podium and the national anthem playing, that's what it meant to me. Like for me, it was just a massive, I would say a relief. I would say, like for me, a tournament, like my body just knows when the tournament's over because it's like I've just kind of build and build and build. And like for me during a tournament, I still train pretty hard in the gym as well. Like I want to like I keep kind of going the full time. And as soon as it's over, it's like my body just shuts down and it's like a relief that it's done. Um, and yeah, all the emotions, I guess, just came out on top of the podium. And not for one moment did I ever think, right, that's it, I'm retiring, I'm finishing. Because I didn't really have that much time to kind of stop and think about that, if you know what I mean. On the back of it, of course, we enjoyed a lot of perks. I got home and a couple of days later, I think I would remember I was sick as a dog. And I was just exhausted, absolutely exhausted. And of course, I every single day within British Curling, like we had to fill out like a basically a questionnaire for COVID, just how we're feeling, blah blah blah. So that like nothing like that stopped. So that carried on. I remember phoning Lindsay, who was like she was our physio and our kind of COVID representative. And I was like, Lindsay, I'm sick as a dog. And of course, the first thing she says, you need to go and get a PCR test. And I was like, I know it's not COVID. Anyway, so off I went, saw the doc, I saw Niall at the institute, and he was negative. And he said to me, listen, just go and get a bottle of Coke and some crisps and lie on the couch. And for people who know me, that is not me. You'll never. And that's what I did. I got home and I had bottles of Coke and bags of crisps and was lying on the couch. So that's what an Olympic champion does a couple of days after they get home.
Well, proof that I can sometimes I can act like an Olympic champion, then that's true.
Yeah.
Only in a very specific way, of course. So Eve, I know we're nearly at the very, very end of your time with us, and we're grateful for you to spend the time so far that you've had. But I suppose to finish off, elite sport is in your DNA, and you're now going to the next Olympic Games, but not as an athlete, but you're going as the big boss, as the chef de mission, which is a title that most people might think, what does that actually mean? But I suppose tell us what that actually means. And if somebody comes to you and says, "Hey, I'm just here for the social," how does Team GB chef de mission Eve Muirhead handle that as opposed to young athlete 2012 Eve Muirhead?
Yeah, so I'm very lucky to have retired from curling and now kind of step into another, I guess, very big job within sport. And working with the British Olympic Association is it's very different for me. Of course, I'm literally gone from an athlete to doing a lot of kind of sitting behind a laptop and leading a lot of all winter sports, including curling, which is great. Learning a lot, but yeah, to be named as the chef de mission. So I guess I basically lead, support, and kind of negotiate as such the delegation. I will obviously make sure and hit a lot of deadlines. I'll always have an athlete's hat on. So if you think about it, a bus, for example, like there's people out, like other people who I work with, like they'd book the bus. So we need a bus for 50 people. Like they'd book the bus from A to B. But me as the chef de mission and a kind of former athlete, like I'll then think, well, is that bus comfy enough for athletes who are busy competing to travel on? Like, is there everything they need, like from snacks to water? Like, is that journey relevant for what they need? Do you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I want to make their journey as smooth as possible. I want to make sure that every single athlete has the best possible platform to perform on when it comes to Olympic Games. I'll be honest, like there's a lot of pressure within the job, because when else do you get to be part of and help deliver an athlete's dream? And I guess that's exactly what I'm doing. So it's exciting. It's starting to ramp up. I think I saw today is like 6 months until the first stone will be thrown, which is coming in so quickly. But really exciting as well. And especially with the 2 curling teams announced, it's great for them. Now they can start to prepare and really kind of set out their schedules to make sure and kind of be on peak performance when it comes to Milan Cortina. And yeah, working on the other side's been an eye-opener, made me realise that as an athlete I probably was pretty selfish, maybe didn't really give the people around me as much respect as what they needed, because as an athlete you just turn up and you expect everything to be in front of you. But now that I'm one of those people that make sure everything's in front of them, you realise, like, yeah, as an athlete you're very lucky what you do have in front of you.
Eve Muirhead, Olympic champion, thank you so much for your time. We'll speak to you soon.
Thank you.
Eve, thanks so much.
No.
And that wraps up episode 4 of the Scottish Curling Podcast. A huge thank you to Eve Muirhead for joining us. Remember, you can pre-order Ice Queen now from all good book retailers with release on September 4th. We will be back next week with more, but for now, please share and review this podcast wherever you listen. From us at Scottish Curling, it's bye for now.